Welcome to the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of January 9th, 2023. I'm Catherine Haleko, and I'm here with Nicole Eridix.
Hello.
And Terry Morrow.
Hello.
Every week we chat about what parents are talking, complaining, and obsessing about right now. This week we're complaining about babysitter behavior and obsessing about when to get rid of the baby monitor.
Never.
We also take a couple of breaks for an entertainment discussion and a recommendation roundup. Today we are talking about young adults and money management, or maybe how to make sure your kids tell you when they mess up. How much speaking of monitoring, how much monitoring of the old bank account?
Yeah, it's such a trust exercise to let your kid manage their own money, isn't it? Because it's like, you know all the bad things that can happen. And they do not wish to hear it from you. See our recent discussion of an extremely expensive salad, was it? At Whole Foods?
At Whole Foods.
And you're like, Mom's just powerless to do anything. You see what's coming. It is just rushing toward that brick wall. Well, I have for quite a while let my daughter manage her own money. She works, she gets a paycheck, she has some bills that she pays every month, and other than that, she has a great deal of discretionary income. I politely suggest putting it in savings quite frequently, and she smiles and nods at me and then does not do so. But you know what? She's 32 years old. She's, she gets to manage her own money at this point, as long as there's no problem. For early on, I had her log in and I would look. And then I can't remember, either she took the information away from me or we came to an agreement that I would stop. And I have, and it seemed like everything would be okay. I kept thinking maybe she's going to get overdrawn and come to me and say, Mom, I'm overdrawn. What do I do? Or Mom, there was a fee from the bank this month. What do I do? And I would, instruct her from there. But no, everything's fine. Smile on her face. No problems, no problems, no problems. And then the other night she came into my room and she says, Mom, I have to tell you something about my bank account and it's really bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did she have identity theft? Did somebody clean her out? And it developed that she has this friend who she's known from like special ed pre-K or maybe kindergarten, but she and I have both known this girl for a long time. And she's one of these girls who, Nicole, you have this experience in teaching too, I'm sure, who does not have maybe the kind of family support and guidance you would wish. And she, I think when we knew her most of the time, she lived with her grandmother. I don't know what the situation was with her birth parents. And they were on a learning and language disabled track. So, a kid with some issues. And they were very close friends when they were little, and then that fell apart. And then they were very close friends around middle school, and then that fell apart. And then at some point, she was working at a store across the street from where my daughter works at Wendy's. And so she started coming into Wendy's and asking my daughter to buy her lunch, which my daughter did because she's a sweet girl. And again, this young woman has been part of our life forever, even though they are not close friends at this time. And it's also hard. What do you say? No, you don't get lunch. So she sort of reluctantly did that. And she told me about that right away. And I sort of felt bad about it. But at the same time, this isn't some Sharpie trying to get a free lunch off a kid who doesn't,
Right.
The person doing the taking here has some issues also. So let her decide what to do about that. There's worse things 32-year-olds could be doing with their money than buying their friend lunch. And then apparently sometime in August, this girl asked my daughter for her debit card number and PIN number because she needed it for Uber. To get an Uber, I guess you have to do it through the app and therefore you have to have a card to pay with. Is that correct?
Yes.
I haven't used Uber. So this girl obviously put my daughter's information in her Uber and then never took it out. Or tried to take it out and didn't do it correctly. Apps don't like to be minus an account. You can think you're taking it out, but it's just going to defer to what you put in earlier. At any rate, for the past 5 months, this girl has been riding Uber on my daughter. And my daughter was afraid to tell me because she thought I would be mad. And she thought maybe she had done something illegal she herself, the victim, thought she had possibly done something illegal in
Right,
giving out
right.
her debit card number. Oh my gosh. And so once she finally told me, she was so relieved. She said, "Oh, for 5 months I've been worrying about this. I felt so terrible. It feels so good to have that lifted off my back." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you've been suffering with this for 5 months? I feel terrible. Why wouldn't you have told me? Even if I was going to be mad, why would you have told me?"
Right.
And I just felt so bad that it had gone on so long. And of course, we're immensely lucky that the only thing the girl used it for was Uber. I think it's possible she forgot that that was my daughter's card on there, or she thought that surely her good friend would want her to have a ride. But she didn't then take it and say, "Oh, great. Now I can also put this on Amazon and I can also put this on whatever else I want to do."
Right.
That did not happen. For 5 months, that did not happen. So, it was a not terribly expensive lesson. I don't want to go see how much she shelled out for Ubers, but she wasn't overdrawn anyway.
Right.
And so as soon as she told me, I said, "Hey, what we do is we go to the bank, we get a new debit card and a new PIN number. And the next time your friend wants to get a ride, she's not going to be able to." But, it just made me think, I feel like I told her, "Don't give your number or your PIN number out to people," but maybe I didn't think to do that. Or maybe I didn't say, "Hey, if you ever have any problem at all with your account, no matter what it is, you tell us. Don't
Right.
keep it to yourself. Money is important. Not getting in trouble with money is important. You need to tell us right away." And if we're mad, that's less of a penalty than paying for somebody's Uber for 5 months. So, and she was afraid to go to the bank. She thought she was going to be in trouble with the bank. I'm like, "Honey, smarter people than you have done stupider things with their money. The bank has seen everything. Don't worry about it." And indeed, they just said, she said she lent her card to somebody and the guy said, "Oh, and she took advantage of it, huh? Okay, type. Here's your new card." So it was no big deal. So it was a lot of agony for her over 5 months for nothing.
Right.
And I think this happens a lot with young adults, whether it's because they want to look like they're on top of things and don't want to admit that they're not, or they just don't know really the gravity of the situation. Have you guys had any situations like that where your kid did something and you're like, "Don't do that"? And also, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?"
Well, my child's response to everything is, "I'll figure it out."
Yeah.
And
right.
I'm like, you don't have to figure it out. Like, I can help you.
Yes.
I have more life experience than you do.
Yes.
And I am very willing to help you.
Nay,
so that
eager.
you... Right, exactly. I will help you figure it out. Like, you will still be
Yes.
figuring it out, but
Right.
you will have somebody with you while you
Perhaps
do that.
have some figuring it out tools you can share
Yes,
that will be of use in the
exactly.
future.
Right. It really, any offer of help is just seen as either nagging or just like, clearly you are incompetent, so let
Yes,
me help you.
exactly.
And that's not what I mean, obviously.
Yes, right.
But I haven't yet figured out a way. I think I mentioned this with the college thing that, I try real hard to be like, this is to get him to think that things are his idea, first of all.
Yeah.
And to just kind of like casually mention, various options and then leave decisions to him.
Yeah.
But this doesn't necessarily work. So
No.
yeah, it's real hard.
It is.
And I like you said, should you have told her not to give it out, and maybe you did.
And maybe I
could-
did, and that's why she thought, "Oh no, I can't tell her I did that thing she said not to." So
Right.
you're kind of out of luck either way,
And we've talked too before about like how much do you like plant something in
Right.
their head, and by telling them not to do it.
Right.
But I also could easily see, the friend saying, "Well, I really need it,"
Yes.
and your daughter thinking like, "Oh, it's just this one time."
Exactly.
And, what am I supposed to do? Like, let her sit on the side of the road all day, you know?
Right. And I mean, I totally would have paid for this girl to have a ride home. It's
Right.
totally okay that my daughter wanted to do that. The problem is that you have to do it by giving this information that then that person can use for anything.
Right.
Right.
So, even though she, in this case, just used it for additional Uber rides,
Right.
you need control of that information. So I've been thinking about what I'm going to do, because if like this girl comes back to her and says, "Hey, I don't make me walk home through bad areas because I can't take an Uber anymore,"
Yeah.
Oh.
and my daughter is going to have no sympathy. She's done. But it's like, I am totally going to buy one of those Visa cards that you can buy at the store and give it to her and say, "Use this when you run out. Let me know." Because I don't want her walking home
Yeah.
in the dark. But also, no, you cannot have my credit card number.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it had been one of her teenage coworkers or something just taking advantage of her, I would definitely have my mama bear hat on and be,
Right.
kicking butt. But in this case, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Sure
I have
is.
some compassion.
As with everything, right?
Yeah,
It's never
yeah.
cut and dry.
No, it never is, which makes it that much harder to tell your kid what to do.
Yeah.
If it's black and white, if anybody asks you for anything, you tell them no.
Right.
But it's not.
no.
You don't want to be that person. But you also don't want to be here. Here's my bank account. Let's share.
Right. So
Especially
is
with a
there,
debit card.
is there, have you talked about the "I didn't want to tell you" piece of it?
Yeah, I mean, I have. And she's not seemed like something was troubling her. She seemed perfectly fine. And, in fact, she told her therapist about it. And her therapist was also surprised that she hadn't mentioned it for 5 months. It's like,
Right.
this has been tormenting you. You've kept it under your hat really well.
Right.
But I guess she was just felt like if she mentioned it to anybody, she was going to be,
In a lot of trouble.
off to the pokey. So, I
Wow.
told her about doctor-patient confidentiality and about your parents are not going to report you to the police.
Right.
And also, you did nothing wrong
Yeah.
other than to be dangerously generous.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so we have to. I mean, what do? You every day you sit down at the dinner table and say, "So, who has a terrible secret they're keeping that they're afraid to tell us?" This is amnesty hour. Bring it on.
Amnesty hour.
Once a week, we will have a day of amnesty where you can bring us anything that you have done that is stupid, and we will promise not to yell at you or report you to the police.
I love that. That's awesome.
We-
Amnesty hour.
at the Y where I go to take yoga class, they're having a towel amnesty period right now, and there's like signs all over the place that say like, "We get it, sometimes one of our towels just makes its way to your house, like it's fine, just bring it back, no questions asked."
That's hilarious and necessary, I'm sure.
Right, but also like it's not hard to just like act,
Yes.
throw it back in. I don't think they would ever know if you
Right.
brought it from home and threw it in the laundry bin.
Yeah, but still, it's good to get out the message that, yeah, we get it. We don't care. Just bring it back.
Just bring it back. Yeah.
You don't have to sneak it. You don't have to, stuff it under your shirt and pretend you're pregnant and then,
Right.
just
They do have cameras, but they don't have them in the locker rooms. So, yeah, it
There'd be
just
that
makes-
one mom who would say, "I saw so-and-so putting towels in that she did not take
Right.
today."
It just there's so many signs.
Yeah. Well, we haven't, it's been so long, since my son, first got his debit card and then his first credit card. We probably had some conversations just to kind of guide him. And I probably kept tabs on him for the first while. I can't remember. I'm sure I did. I would have.
Yeah, yeah. But at some point, you have to, let the little fish swim, let the little bird fly.
Yeah. That probably happened. No, probably by a second or third year university, where I was like, okay, I don't need to ask anymore. And then once he started medical school, I washed my hands of that.
You're on your own, friend.
You can deal with all of that.
Yeah, but you hope by then he knows what he's doing with it.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, one of his first year classes, maybe it was second year, was a financial literacy class for doctors.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah, apparently and not surprisingly, a lot of new doctors will, as soon as they're done, they're going to go out and spend the big bucks. But you don't make big bucks in your first couple of years.
And you have huge loan payments, I would think.
Huge amounts of debt. I mean, at least $500,000 in debt.
Wow.
For if you've gone through with student loans all the way through.
Right.
So, you're paying huge amounts of money on debt. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So I thought it was really interesting that they offered that. And my son actually, he did do quite a bit of research on that beforehand, because we had a family friend who mentored him, in terms of supporting him when he was applying to medical school. And he often talked about the financial aspect of it, not in detail, but kind of you've got to be careful, because you're going to see people who run out and buy the Mercedes and the, the high end, the Jag or the whatever it is, right? Like the high end cars. And he's like, those will be the surgeons. They're the ones that can afford it. The family doctors and the emergency medical doctors, they can't. Not yet. So anyway, so he did do a little bit of research on that, in terms of how to manage your money. But my daughter, on the other hand, has been a very different case, because she's living in another country. Mm-hmm. So we have had hours and hours of conversations about, and not just be careful, but more about how to manage your money in two different countries, and how to manage your money in a different country with a different banking system, right?
Right.
So she's had to figure out all of that kind of with us, our support. And thankfully we know it well, because we've lived there.
Right.
So we, know it well. And it's not that far different from America in some respects. But so we do a lot of, and we still do have a lot of conversations and check-ins, and, where are things at. And so she's a different ball game altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
So financial conversations are very much part of our check-ins with her, but they have to be, because of where she's at.
Yeah.
And we've got,
I ask
two different
from time
worlds.
to time, everything going okay with your money? And get the answer, yes, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. So you can have the conversations and still.
Oh no, I'm let's open your bank account.
Okay, that's good.
No, it's okay, where are you at with this? And what's happening with that? And show me this.
What was this charge for, Missy?
Mm-hmm. No, we have an agreement that I don't question charges. But it's in this, and maybe some people just send their kids off to another country and hope for the best.
Golly.
But, especially if she wants to consider living there down the road, right? If she wants to be there a few more years and make it more of a permanent situation, she needs to be mindful of her credit. She needs to be mindful of, it's not like she can just bail and leave if things go bad. But anyway, we're a little bit different situation.
Yeah. Well, listeners, if you haven't had a chat with your young adult lately, maybe an occasional, anything you want to tell me about your finances? Really, it's okay. Amnesty. And might be a good idea if you want to sneak into their rooms and steal their passwords and, take a look around. Not that I personally recommend that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Anyway, that's it for today's round 1. Tune in tomorrow for our entertainment-themed round 2, and later in the week to find out what we're complaining about, obsessing about, and recommending right now. We're always interested in what you have to say, so drop us a comment on our website, our Facebook page, or Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Chat.